Hey, good morning, everyone. I'm Chris Conroy,
And I'm James Jackson.
and this is Retail Unfiltered.
Hey, Chris, good morning. It's cold here as usual in Minnesota, but I think it's also kind of cold in many other places. So we're going to hopefully warm things up today with another important conversation.
Yeah, I agree, James. We need to warm it up. And actually, this is going to be a good one because we're going to talk about shoppers and their environment. They're probably coming in from the cold, so we want to make sure it's a good environment when they get there. So it's going to be another great conversation. And that's what this is, right? It's a conversation. Retail Unfiltered is a live conversation where we bring the experts and you bring the questions. And this year we've been talking a lot about transformative change for our functions. And the largest area around that is bringing the shopper to the center and making sure our work is shopper centric.
Yeah, and we've talked about getting to know the shopper more deeply in ways maybe we haven't done before, including last week, where we talked about truly understanding the psychology of shoppers.
Yeah, yeah. Today's going to be a little bit different, right? So we've done a lot of that work on understanding what shoppers say. We're really going to dig into the shopper, as I said, in the context of the store. And we know the store is evolving fast. And those store teams are gaining smarter tools, better visibility, ability to act in real time. We need to act because shopper dissatisfaction is something that can really turn off loyalty and send shoppers to a different store.
Yeah, yeah. So what happens when local managers are empowered to adjust inventory, rebalance displays, and respond instantly to shopper demand? Well, it should deliver a better experience for our customers and stronger results for our business. So today you will hear practical insights on real-time decision making at store level, optimizing on-hand inventory and backstock, turning everyday customer interactions into sales, and also aligning store execution with local store needs. And so we'll explore how next generation retail technology is shaping more responsive, efficient, and locally driven stores.
Yeah, so all good stuff. And I know from my times running Catman teams, right? That's where the work that we do actually meets reality. And so it's very important we talk about stretching our function is engaging with store operations teams as you have these conversations about your category management plan. So to help us with that, we're thrilled to bring Troy Siwek to the conversation. Troy leads gStore GreyOrange's in-store retail platform, bringing more than 2 decades of experience at the intersection of retail, AI, and supply chain innovation. His career spans leadership roles across retail technology, digital commerce, and automation, earning the trust of Fortune 5 brands to modernize operations, unlock real-time visibility across store and fulfillment ecosystems. At GreyOrange, Troy is responsible for driving gStore's global growth and product strategy with a focus on transforming brick and mortar retail through advanced RFID, AI, and robotics. Under his leadership, gStore has become the go-to solution for top retailers seeking to turn stores into intelligent, agile, high-performance nodes within the broader supply chain.
Yeah. So before we bring Troy to the stage, we just want to take care of a few housekeeping items. So our buddy Mike, he is now there waving. He's behind the scenes and he'll be watching the chat. You can find that option at the bottom of your screen. And we want to keep it open throughout the hour. So please feel free to add comments, network with the other attendees, or if you're just shy, and that's okay, just drops your question into the chat. We encourage you to engage, but as I always say, please be professional. And so Mike is going to drop a quick question into the chat right now. We'd love to hear where you're calling in from.
Yep. And as Troy proceeds through the discussion, we're going to keep it open for live comments as well. So if you'd like to unmute and ask a question live, and as we'll be watching the Q&A, and all you need to do is raise your hand on the option on the dashboard at the bottom. And as will let you know that she's going to open up your mic and you can ask away. So between the chat and the live questions, we'll get to as many as we can in front of Troy. And if we have any left over, we'll make sure we follow up with those in the email after the session. I think that's it. That's it. Let's get going.
Hey guys, thanks for having me. It's great to
All
be
right,
here.
Troy. Thanks.
Let me pull up a slide to get going here. All right, thank you for the kind introduction. We'll skip that, but we got a lot of words here. But the thing I would say that might be relevant here is most of my career Right now I'm running a software company that does automation, robotics, inventory, and particular focus around in-store tech. The latest, greatest. How do we bring all these insights together in a store? But most of my career has been retail consulting. And towards the end of it, it was really advising large retailers at the C-suite level. What should we do? What's fact and fiction? What's next? Will this have an ROI? So that's the background to give you an idea of where I come from and how I can engage in this discussion and answer questions. And so with gStore, a lot of what we're doing is bringing what we call different sensing uh, technology into a singular app that's in the hands of the store associates and the retailers, and then sometimes the consumers, but mostly it's inward retail facing to help store associates. If they're good, the customer can be good, and to help provide information so there's just not a lot of lack of information or guessing or all that kind of frustrating work that happens in the store. So I'll get into it and I'll tell you a little bit more about it. But first, we did a survey late last year where we sent out to store managers, and we basically asked a whole bunch of questions, and we gleaned some information from what store managers were seeing towards the end of last year. What we saw was tariffs are disrupting retail stock. That kind of surfaced to the top. Empty shelves, lower sales, stockouts. I mean, those have always been there in retail, but we saw an increase of that from the responders. Stock location issues are hurting sales. So that doesn't mean that a store is out of stock in this context. It could, but it could just mean the customer couldn't find it. It was in the back room. It was in the return area. It wasn't brought to the front, something like that. But stockouts impacted sales numbers. And then staffing came up in multiple questions and responses. Inability to complete tasks, inability to get their work done, not enough people, hard to find help. These are probably not new topics to you, but these are fresh from last year's survey. These are how these store managers are feeling. And then despite all that, they were optimistic about the holiday season. They had kind of a positive attitude. They thought things would be pretty good. So just kind of like zeroing in on that, stock issues that face those store managers and their teams. This is the kind of occurrence level of what they said in the report. So 39% said at least once a week they were having problems finding something that was supposed to be there. The key is it was supposed to be there. So there's some system, there's some e-com system, some POS system, whatever it might be, is saying the inventory is supposed to be there and it's not. Imagine the impact if that was you as the consumer. You were standing in the store, you had a buy online, pick up in store, or whatever it might be. That is 39% at least once a week. And then you see the other numbers here, 27% once every 2 to 4 weeks, et cetera, et cetera. So these are highly impactful. Probably the most impactful event is somebody thinks there's supposed to be inventory and there's not. So that brings us to today's discussion and why I'm here, and hopefully where you have a lot of questions. The state of the store. So the pressure's rising. So all these issues have been there since we've been doing this, right? But the pressure on getting it right is a lot stronger now. I don't think there's any debate there. So just to recap some of the problems we're seeing, stockouts, excessive inventory, one side and the other, massively impact store performance. And in the work I'm doing, I see both. I walk into a clothing store in LA, meeting with the executives there, and their back room is so full of excess stock that the store associates and the manager feel like they can't do their job. They can't find stuff. It's almost like it creates anxiety. There's too much stuff here. It's in the way. it doesn't make any sense. Are the leaders of my company, what are they doing? Is the question being asked. And then on the other hand, stockouts, this stuff's selling great. I don't understand why it's not here, right? I'm frustrated. I'm getting customers upset. So both sides of the equation cause problems in the store. Missed sales. And when you start now introducing the ability to shopper track and see footfall, whether it's kind of old-fashioned footfall or whether it's cameras and things that are detecting actual number of customers in and out of the door, the missed sales don't always correlate to the foot traffic. There's people there, but stuff's not selling. So why is that? How do we get to the bottom of that? A lot of labor time, a lot of store associate time spent spinning their wheels, doing stuff that's value added. So think about the most value add is helping someone buy something, right? Somehow helping them find stuff and transact. Everything else, it starts to fall down on the pyramid of really important stuff. Inventory accuracy, it drives lost sales. And I think I want to restate this because I almost always see when we start these conversations in a consulting capacity that they think we're talking about something's in the warehouse and it should be in the store, or at the manufacturer and it should be in the store. We see a lot of times it's just in the back room, or it's in the changing room, or it's on a pallet sitting in an aisle somewhere. It's just not where the customer is. The inventory isn't where they would find it and buy it. So I want that theme to keep resonating here. And then, with the staffing, the store teams feel stretched. That came out in the survey. We see that when we visit stores. So that means we can't assume that's always going to get fixed, or the retailer has the ability to fix that. So what we have to do is make things easier for the associates that are there, make things more efficient, take away those tasks that aren't value add, that aren't helping the customer transact. And so we just kind of assume as we design, the store teams aren't going to get bigger. I think that's a pretty safe assumption. And then the pressure point for all of this, like I said, all of these things have been here as long as we've all been working in a retail environment. But the pressure point now is the customers are increasingly expecting certainty in physical stores, where they might not have had that high of expectation before. But in the era of you click on your Starbucks app and you get your grande latte, whatever, right? And it's there in 4 minutes. That's how the consumer is now trained. They will not tolerate, I'm going to pick this up and then I get to the store and they say it's not there, right? Or I can't figure out if they have this item or not. I have no way to know if they have this item or not. So there's two types of consumers. There's probably a lot more than two, but there's two kind of categories of somebody who's very digital oriented and they want to do everything on their phone or their app or whatever it may be. And they expect all of that information to be right. On the other hand, there's people that want to interact, get feedback from the store associate, get help, but they need that store associate to be informed, to know whether you have it. What's the next option? Is there something that matches it? So either way, they're expecting certainty of information, whether they're talking to people or whether they're talking to their phone.
You've struck a nerve, Troy.
All right.
Because the chat is lighting up. So a comment here from our friend Tom Tester. Hey Tom, how are you today? Tom says the never-ending battle between having sometimes ill-scheduled seasonal items arriving to clog the back rooms, slowing the flow of everyday items. I would imagine this is something others here would echo in terms of that push and pull. So great comment. And then there was something that Ted McCaffrey, who's joining us today. Ted, welcome. Ted's got a really great question. I think we'd like you to sort of take a pass at here. And Ted says, Dick's Sporting Goods now fulfills 80% of their digital volume with store inventory, putting pressure on inventory accuracy like never before. Are weekly cycle counts enough in today's omni-channel world?
So that's a good question. So I would say it depends on the model, the store model, the retail model that you're in. But if I have to generalize, what I would say is weekly cycle counts, if not manual, they're usually done with some kind of handheld scanning, Zebra device or something similar, right? And in a format like a Dick's or a bigger format, it's going to be really hard to expect that you're going to do more than a weekly cycle count, right? So what's working really well, it's new. Not everybody's doing it, but what's working really well is overhead RFID, autonomous RFID sensing. So it's always on, it's always sensing. So my answer to Ted would be it may not be enough in an environment where you're doing that kind of volume. We have a client that's fully rolled out in a pick path solution, right? And so knowing where everything is in the store is super important. And then having the ability to map that out. So there's a visual map directing the associate. So if you have an employee that's, say, been around for 6 years, they don't need to know anything. They don't need your app to tell them where something is. They know exactly where that is. They've been living at that store 8 hours a day for 5 days a week. But that's not the state of staffing in retail. A lot of people are just 2 weeks, 3 weeks in, and then they need to be informed. So having some kind of a map app that tells them, kind of like if you think of like Google Maps or something like that, inside of a store, tell them where something is. Handheld cycle counting might not be a good enough solution in a lot of the store formats. You want something automated that tells you where everything is all the time if you have that RFID solution.
Great stuff, Troy. Also Ted also chimed in. I think more of a comment here about split shipments. The idea that the example he gave, someone ordering 26 items on Baby Gap, sounds like a baby shower order to me. With free shipping, and then received her order in 6 different packages from 6 different locations. Margin gone, said Ted. Yep, I'd say so. Couple other things have come in here. I want to double click back on kind of how you started this slide with the compelling example of being in Los Angeles in that store. And the store you described is a store we've all kind of been in at some point, right? And so the question is, in your experience, stores that are in that sort of situation, is that an assortment issue, an ordering replenishment issue, or a logistics issue when associates can't find something? What do if there's one that jumps out in a case like that, what do you think is pain point number one or cause number one?
In the case where it's too much inventory, it can be all of those that you mentioned, but what we've seen is it's something wrong with their inventory accuracy in their store. So let's assume the people that are doing the ordering or the, kind of the distributions of what's coming in, if it's new fashion, for example, let's assume they sort of know what they're doing, or they mostly know what they're doing. And so you might get a little extra that way, but really what the main cause is if they think they're out of something and they're replenishing it. Now, sometimes, I've seen it. I've been in retailers consulting when they say, I don't care. Let's just get it out to the stores. We got 3 more weeks of the holiday season. Let's just push it out, right?
Yeah.
That can happen. But we typically have been seeing it's accuracy issues. Then with stockouts, particularly, we spend a lot of time. We do big box. We do a kind of a mix of retailers, but most of our work and kind of advising comes in the fashion space. And when we see stockouts, oftentimes it's in the store. It's just not brought from the back of the house to the front of the house. or there's a display up in the front window, and the stuff that they put near that display is out, but there's another area in the back where it's at. For the consumer, it's just out. Right?
Yeah,
That's where she's standing. It's out. I don't know. Did that answer the question?
it did. And it is this just a problem inherent of having to handle multiple audiences with you've got in-store buying, online, curbside, all of those things is 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 that just sort of life in this experience for it right now?
I think if some retailers have a product profile that lends itself to tagging with sensing. So like
Yeah.
RFID, there's other technologies too, but RFID. And if you have that, if you're doing that or you're going to do that, then you're sort of running out of excuses for why that would be divergent. Omni-channel, e-commerce shopping, on the app, pick up in store, because you can see what's happening. You can see the sales, you can see what's moving around. So the problem statement becomes somebody orders something online, omni-channel order, and somebody simultaneously picks it up in the store and puts it in their cart or their bag or whatever. Now that can happen. Something's on sale. Surely that can happen. There's ways to protect against that. But mostly for not your number one selling item of the moment, that shouldn't happen as much as you might think. That shouldn't happen. So you should have a, a, a view of what you have in that store, and you be protected against selling something. So all of those, the omni-channel customer and the in-store retail, they should all be happy. Let's say 99%, 98.9%, whatever that is. There shouldn't be a problem if you're RFID. Now, if you're not RFID, there's more complexity in getting that right, because then you're talking about barcode inventory. There's different ways to keep your inventory up to date, but it becomes a little less automated.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a little harder to do.
Last quick thing, and and again, there's so much has spun off this slide, and we'll certainly let you get back to it. And you may well get to this last point we're going to raise here before we get you back into it, but it's about mapping. And Dick's is a really interesting example because they're really, they've really leaned in well to e-commerce, and they've done a really good job of, I think, being um, a lot of things to a lot of people very, very well. But to that example of mapping in the role of the store, if you've got a store that's primarily online fulfillment, from a mapping standpoint, how do you get it to where that doesn't impact the in-store shopper finding things, if you will, right? Just in terms of how you're kind of mapping this out, sort of placing things logically.
So the mapping function that I was talking about really is just what exists today. And I want to make sure I'm capturing the essence of your question. So I'll come
Yeah,
back in a second. But what the planogram, if they have it, I mean,
yeah,
all retailers are different, right, in the data they can provide, or it could be a CAD drawing of the store, or we might have to make a representation using high def cameras of the store, right? And so all it is a representation of what is there. This is your store. This is the aisle with men's shoes. This is the changing station. This is the omni-channel picking state, all that kind of stuff. So it's just a map in an app on your phone or on a Zebra device or whatever device you might be using. And so step one for us is providing that info to the associates so they can do a faster pick path. So think of the UPS truck navigating a neighborhood. They don't get to just pick. It tells them where to go, what the most efficient turn here, turn left here, that to make the most quickest way to get to the product or to get to your house if you're a UPS driver. That's step one, providing that level of function to make the associate more efficient and happier. Step two, then, is providing a means for the retailer to present that to the consumer, the customer. A little bit trickier because some retailers have their own app that people use. Some have an app that people don't use. and or their e-commerce site, or they just go, they have a website you can browse on your phone, or they might want us to present something to them. But they have different avenues that they engage the customer that's going to shop in their store, that's going to come to their store, and we could provide that map for the consumer too. Gets a little more complicated though, because you can make some design mistakes and some UX UI mistakes with an associate, and the consequences are usually pretty low as long as you get them fixed. You don't ever want to make those usability mistakes with a consumer, because they might never open the app again, and that's not good. So that's the mapping I was talking about. It's about just having the right information in your fingertips, so you're not wandering around or lacking information of where something is.
Perfect. That's exactly what we're getting at. And Troy, back to you and onward. And again, keep those questions coming in the chat. And again, I think you've tripped a wire here, Troy. I'll just awesome. Say that.
That's why we're here. Hopefully we get a little more controversial in the next topic here. So this is, I think, the big reason we're here. So what's changing, right? Like, what's happening? I've been in retail my whole career. What's there now that maybe some of you think some of this has been here. I can probably make an argument of what version of it and why I think it wasn't, but these are the newer things. So near real-time inventory awareness. And I don't mean SAP or Manhattan or Oracle telling you have 40 of these in a store. I'm talking about each individual item, where it is at in the store, right? That necessary awareness to meet the customer where they expect you to be. A digital and visual understanding of the shelves and displays, store readiness and compliance. So, any of us who've been in retail long enough have heard of the infamous, we're going on the store visit to the Detroit market or the LA market, and 2 or 3 execs are going and they're bringing their teams, and let's do the store tours and stuff like that. So those will probably still happen, because the human to human interaction is important in any business, including retail. You need that connection with the associates. You need to see the customers. But most of what we do, if you have a digital visual representation of what's happening, what's on the shelves, how does it look, how clean is it? Maybe not the big brother, what are the associates doing? That gets a little creepy, and I don't know if I'd want to work for a place that's doing that kind of stuff. But how busy is your store with shopper tracking versus employee tracking? So we can come back to this, but I'll just pose a topic like your Soho store. Your associates start to go on their lunch break, but it turns out your Soho store gets shopped by lunchers, right? So they leave their office and they come in during lunch hour. So you might react different if you had that visual people tracking, where you're like, oh, okay, maybe we need to take our lunch breaks earlier or staff up during this window, because we get a big rush of customers and then we're not helping people. So we have a lot of foot traffic, but the sales registers aren't increasing the way we would expect them to with that foot traffic. Or compliance, we sent out these new displays to match the digital advertising we're doing and the commercial that's running on TV. But these stores in the Austin market didn't put the displays up. So if the customers come in, so those executives can't fly out to every store to make sure it's what it is, right? So you'd want some kind of a dashboard explaining to you from visual cues that there's a problem here. This is where to focus your attention. Automation of counting, scanning, store checks. It's here, but at scale, it's coming soon. Software that recommends things. So, the software I'm used to and the things I'm used to is reports, daily sales reports, by store. Here's what happened yesterday, or here's what happened today. So that's kind of like a thing of the past. Those discussions will still happen, but it's really about action now. How can I do something with the information instead of just reacting to it the next day or the next week at the end of the week? So, here's a task that gets sent to a store manager. Here's a task that gets sent to a store associate. Hey, as soon as you log in today, an hour before we open the store, you need to go replenish these 37 items and bring them from the back room to the front room because you got hit at 6 p.m. last night, right before the store closed, and you got knocked out of a bunch of items that are hot sellers, right? So automated tasking that just happens. No one needs to decide. It just gets in a queue for somebody when they log in. Centrally managed versus point solutions. We can get into this topic if it's interesting. So a lot of the things we're going to talk about, you might say, well, there's been shopper tracking for many years now. There's been camera solutions that do checking on your inventory and your, what does your merchandising look like, and those are good, and they're interesting and they work, right? But they're point solutions. So at what point do you need to centrally manage all this decision making, right? That's what's needed here. Whether the retailer's big enough and they build their own software or they buy something from a provider, it needs to be, all these data points need to be managed together, right? And not having to integrate all these things, integrate your shopping shop tracker provider with your inventory counting solution and things like that, or your POS. So you need central management. And then I think I'll pause there. And, because I'm lazy, I took these pictures off of, an LLM and just said, give me a picture of each of these so that I can give you all something to look at. But these are the topics. This is what we're working on right now. This is what our our clients are looking at. Some are testing in the lab, some are leaning forward and rolling this stuff out. But it's all here. So computer vision, RFID, robotics. Robotics is stronger in the fulfillment centers than it is in the stores for obvious reasons. But they will be in the stores for sure. Weather data, AI helpers for associates. That's one kind of group. Then there's AI concierge or AI helpers for shoppers. Whole different thing. So these are all topics we're working with clients on. We're providing solutions. Some's in the lab and some's rolling out in stores. So I'll take a pause here, guys, and we can see where we want to take this.
Certainly, certainly. Let's keep keep the comments coming in the chat. Then a store mapping question, and it kind of centers around CPG and around the frequency of changing out end caps and displays, and in displays that can cause some inventory locating issues. Is that something that CPG writ large should be considering about the optimal frequency of display change over, and what do you do with the overstock? I mean, kind of those questions. Is it something there should be some greater thought and maybe a change in process around?
I think back to the days when it was interesting and new, the concept of sharing your sales data with CPG companies, right?
Right.
Like it was like a new thing, like this daring new world we're going into. And I think with all of this tech, probably you can't provide all of it, but giving these insights to the CPG companies, it could only help a retailer, right? To show the different nuances of this display, the display facings that we're seeing. Here it is. Here's the digital twin of the store, right? So in this image, you would have this data, and you would also have sales data, and you would also have inventory data. So not only could you get what does it look like? What's happening? What's selling and what's not selling? But you could see the gaze factor. So there's nobody walking by this display ever. Something's wrong with it. We either have it in the wrong place, it's the wrong items, wrong packaging. There's not a lot of foot traffic passing this section or this display or this end cap. Or conversely, there's a lot of traffic, there's a lot of gazing, but people aren't transacting, or they're only buying this one item. So why do we have 20 facings with all these different products, right? They're only picking this one item. So there's all business decisions that can be made, not only by the retailer, but by the supplier, the CPG company. They could say, oh my God, this is helpful. We can go fix this, right? Maybe they can't. If something didn't sell and there's overstock, that's probably not a problem I can solve. Now, in stores where you can move, in retail chains where you can move products between stores or between markets, this is where these solutions can get really helpful and provide an ROI. So you can notice a micro trend almost in real time. This denim is selling in Austin, right? It's blowing the doors off, but it's not in New York. And we have $500,000 left of these denim jackets, and we can move them. We can move them to that market, or we can move them to the markets that matter. Or we can change the displays because the store manager had some autonomy and she set it up different in Austin, and it seems to really work. The customers are digging it, right? So let's change that merchant, that merchandising display based on the video, the sales data, the AI recognizing what's different between this store and this store, what's working and what's not working.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting, Troy. And I think that's, to your point, the collaboration around the data to create a change is something that we can continue to build on, because I think that the technology is there to help us make these smarter decisions quicker, right? In the past, it was like, let's talk to it 6 months. We get together and do a business review. You can make it now. You can move the inventory now and not have as much of a problem. I think CPG, just given my CPG background too, it's just an interesting one, right? Because there's changing out weekly. Sometimes it's seasonal, right, around the big holidays like Thanksgiving, but a lot of times it's like, hey, this end cap is up for a week. What do I do? And so I think to that point, right, how do we get to kind of rolling up this data? And are there things that you've seen that say, hey, we can help you, and maybe it is just AI, but we can help you think about that forecasting much more smartly than you used to do in the past? Are there things that you're seeing or conversation you're seeing happen around that?
Yeah, but it starts, what I would say is, before it goes that deep, it's seemingly the energy and the R&D and the conversations with the retailers is starting more closer to the operations than the forecasting.
Yeah.
And so probably not the answer you're looking for, but
No,
there's probably thousands of people working on it, but I haven't seen that as much as I've seen if you have an integrated fulfillment center or distribution center network, and you have all of this information from the retail stores, right, and the suppliers, then you should be able to react in real time and not be so rigid. What do I mean by rigid? There's more than there are not. There are fulfillment centers and distribution centers that still operate like, say, wave picking, if you know, or I might be getting in the weeds here. But they're waiting for a batch of orders to trickle in over time. And then when they do, in Wednesday is the day we fill the store in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, right? So we'll be picking those orders, and I'm just articulating time and wasted friction, system processes. If it's all integrated and it's all intelligent and there's like an AI backbone, I'm not saying AI is going to decide everything, but just a little bit of better decision making. You might decide that 80% of all of the store's goods that need to be transferred are fine getting on that Wednesday load, but we're going to lose a ton of high margin sales if we don't get these 3 products to that store right now. So you might have a high priority shipment. And so that's what I mean when I say operations, because I think you were talking about more of a holistic forecast, if I'm not mistaken. But the energy around all this sensing and stuff is really about how do you get what you have in the retailer's company's ecosystem to be smarter and faster and get that stuff where it needs to be, and also arm the stores with the information they need to help the customers.
Yeah, no, that's great. Troy, and I think that really opens up kind of back to our introduction, right? This breakthrough thinking is a lot of the conversation, and this is more again from a CPG side. We don't talk to the operations folks enough at retailers, right? We talk to the buyers and merchants, which is great, but it may not get to uncover some of the issues that you were just talking about unless you tap into those experts that really deal with product going to and from stores every day.
Yeah, I'm seeing. Is it okay to talk about the poll right now?
Yeah, for sure.
I see somebody answered too many systems, not enough clarity. I mean, amen to that. Um, I'll give my personal perception. So we do store tours. I do store tours, and I'm selfishly wanting to know how they're using the stuff we do, right? How is the RFID working? How is the replenishment from back to front? And what's happening in the changing room? All that kind of stuff, right? But you get into conversations, and usually store associates are very open, friendly. They just want it to work. They don't care who they're talking to. They just want it to work so they can help the customers. And they will get into, yeah, I have this workaround because we have 3 systems that we have to look at to get to the, whatever the XYZ is. And then somebody in my position will be like, why do you have those 3? Why don't you have 1 or 2? And then, so that's their micro version of that, working in the store and related, like we have this one system that does our omni-channel orders. And then we have another system that tells us where the inventory is. And then we have this other system that it'll tell us, what we have to do, our task system or something like that. And it's just crazy to think like they have to manage this. They have to manage all these different apps, and the store could just get clogged with customers, 50 people in the store shopping at the same time with questions. Then you go and have a corporate discussion. We were in a discussion with a huge retailer for 4,000-ish stores, right? And we were talking about thinking like kind of this project we're doing is going really well, and it is. And it's really cool when you go to the stores, they're super excited and jazzed up about the, the stuff we're doing. And you're talking to this executive and he's kind of like, ho hum, yeah, I have 40 apps in my store right now, or 30 apps. Um, when you can start replacing, half of those, uh, then this will get real interesting for me. I love that the associates love it. I love that it's working, but let's get rid of all the noise in the stores and make it easier for the associates. So I'm hearing that poll question, too many systems, not enough clarity. I think it was probably from a different perspective, which is like, how do you get the data in one place to understand it? Which I think is another issue. Getting it all and presenting it to the people that make decisions about forecasts and how much do we buy and which stores do we put it in is the flip side of that. But it still comes down to central management of all these items that you're sensing, the shopper traffic, the inventory, the POS data. You have to consolidate it in a central kind of decision-making tool and present it to the smart people so they can figure these things out.
Sure, I do have another question. I don't know if you can answer it or not, but throughout your conversation, you talked a lot about what I would consider UPC-driven departments and categories. So, do you have any experience around the perimeter of a store, perishable departments? Um, I'm just wondering, what are you seeing there within when it comes to new technology? Are we seeing the same pain points? I mean, there's just a lot of complexity.
Mm-hmm.
You consider like produce where that can change all the time. You have seasonality, you've got shrink, and then you've got the labor component. So just wondering if you had some insights and thoughts about that.
Yeah. So, there's some of the same things, but a little bit of different problem statements, right? Um, hard to put RFID tags on produce, right? So, but we're seeing some of the bigger players starting to apply RFID solutions in the bakery where they have to print tags anyway, right? So we're starting to see, I would call it testing versus just an all in, both feet in. Like, how can we make this better? What can we learn from that? And of course, it's the bigger players because they have money to do testing and to figure out new tech. But the problem statements are different. So um, one one company talked to us about tasking, right? And so one of the biggest challenges, and you guys probably know this better than I do, but one of the biggest challenges is shift by shift in a grocery environment, right? Um, what do I put out? What's the most important task when I get in and start my shift? And usually it's the night shift, as you know, right? Like the night shift comes in and they got to put all the inventory away, get it out of the back room. And a lot of times they have no idea that this pallet of perishables really needs to get out right away because we're going to be discounting it in 2 days, or writing it off, whatever it might be. They're just kind of attacking a stack of work, right? And the store manager tells them, like, make sure you get this out of here and put this there and change the front display to the Reese's or whatever it may be. And so we, in our software, we do tasking, right? The level that's needed in grocery is next level, right? Tasking, because it has to look at perishable dates. There's a lot of compliance, compliance with where did it come from, things like that. So there's conversations are happening, is how I would answer the question. The testing of the tech is happening. But it's probably the hardest area to tackle. Not so much the barcode box goods and things like that, but the areas you brought up around perishables and stuff like that, it is difficult. You can track in the supply chain, and I was part of a project that did that 2018, 2019, where it became really top priority, especially for the big grocers, to figure out where everything is coming from down to the farm level region, so that when there's an outbreak or a perceived outbreak, because that's what happens a lot, they can isolate the recall to that farm or that area in Brazil and not take all the spinach off the shelf, right? And so the tracking, the RFID, all those things that made that possible was in the supply chain. The challenge is once you get it to the store and you break it out of the box and you throw it in the bin and the water turns on, that's where you kind of lose that level of visibility, and it just becomes inventory in the store that gets sellable. So there's a lot of energy, and I am personally talking to those companies about what to do. Where can we do this first? But produce is probably the last place, I think, in the whole building, to answer your question.
Got it. Thank you.
Good, great perspective. A couple of comments have come in there. A lot of stuff, a lot of interest in these topics. I want to get first to this comment from Tom Tester again, which I think is great, and Troy, I'd love your insights about how to connect this. And Tom said the best ideas come from the field. Those ideas are not limited to system constraints and seeing what they do during a walk along. He said seeing what they do during a walk along always reaps benefits, always. And
Yep.
So I guess to that point, how does our industry better start to link that sort of native knowledge, if you will, of the stores or of what actually works, or sort of the to overall improve some of the processes and things that we've talked about, because every store any of us has ever been to, as from a consumer standpoint, there's always somebody there that's always there, and it's like, oh, if Tom's there, we go ask Tom. Tom knows where it is. He knows what aisle it is, right? How do we start to connect this more strategically, kind of drawing from that?
I'll ask more of the question. So that was a great question, but I'll even expand it further. So one of our, kind of high-end-ish, high margin type of clients, we visit one store and the store manager's like the best, right? Like company known, probably CEO knows her name, right? And she has the ability, or she's just one of those ask for forgiveness type of people, to change things in the store because she sees something. She recognizes patterns, right? This is working, this is not, and she'll change the layout, not the fixtures, of course, but I'm going to bring 20 of these out front. It's the advice is telling me to put 11. I'm putting 20 because these things are going to blow out. And she has that autonomy, right? And then you go into another store, the different part of the country, and the store manager will say, we're not allowed to do that. You cannot change anything. The system tells you, or the planogram tells you, and that's it. That's what you do. And so now you have systems recording, you have visual, you have RFID, you have POS, you have shopper traffic information, who's gazing, how long are they standing in front of your display. But you have a store manager that has the autonomy on one side, and another one that doesn't have that autonomy. Same company, same vice president of store operations or whatever. So now how do you feed insights and actionable intelligence? What do you do? Because you can't assume that the store can make those changes. So that's a long-winded way to say there still has to be that human involvement in the process. But I would think that even though the store walkthroughs, nothing can replace what you learn and gain from that, both sides of the equation. But if you could just look at a situation and stare at it on a digital screen and see what's happening, you can probably figure out your processes, your rules. Maybe you have a scoring system for store managers where they can get recommendation from the tools, from the AI, from the corporate office to tweak something. I'll give you a fulfillment center example of what I'm talking about. So we deploy tens of thousands of robots for the world's biggest retailers, right? They're all over the place. And any given site can have 10 robots or they can have 500, right? And you look at it in sort of a digital twin, you can just see, like it's like a video game. You see all the robots moving, you see the throughput of the fulfillment center, you see your stats getting better and better, everybody's happy. But if you stare at an area or a particular fulfillment center and you look at it, just human eyes, you might see something happening that doesn't make a lot of sense. Like the robots are queuing up and there's one guy over here that pushes a thing that gets there, and you just look at it and go, that doesn't make sense. We need to fix that. And I feel like the same applies here in the store environment. So nothing will replace the human interaction, whether it's employees to senior leaders or whether it's store associates to consumers. But if you're more informed, you should be able to action things faster, better, make it repeatable, or make the problem go away because you can actually see what's happening at 2,000 stores instead of the 3 or 4 you get on a one-day visit, right? Where you're hitting a market and you can only grab 4 of those stores. So I don't know if that hit the nature of the question, but that's kind of how I see it.
Well, most certainly did. And as we get kind of the last couple minutes here, that I think we want to kind of put a bow on it this way, and get your perspective on this. What are the type of leaders leading the charge on leveraging this type of tech? That's one bucket. The second bucket we'd like you to address is for the ones that are slow to adopt, but can learn something from the early adopters. What are a couple things they should learn and apply right now?
Okay, I'll give two examples that might contradict the other one, but you'll understand why. So, on one, there's the persistent, and I'm talking about leaders here. There's the living in the lab leader. So everything cool and new is in their lab, in their favorite, whatever that tech store is where you try everything out. And they can't figure out how to, get they're afraid to fail, right? Like they look at it as if I make a decision and that decision ends up to be wrong, I'm going to get fired. That can happen, but I don't think the world works like this. In fast changing tech, Silicon Valley, people are failing fast. So yeah, okay, if it's $100 million decision, $50 million decision, you did something stupid, probably should get fired. But that's not how this works. Things roll out one store at a time or 10 stores, right? So that fear of failure in technology is a career limiter, in my opinion. You see the articles in the Wall Street Journal about the people that make a decision, they're decisive. They know that perfection is the enemy of good, right? If you're just trying to get it perfect, you're never going to go live with anything. You're never going to have that, kind of legacy. This is the guy that did that great omni-channel program that survived COVID for the company or whatever. So I think on one hand, getting out of the lab and that fear factor, I would coach any leader or future leader, learn how to make a decision and then roll it out. If after 10 stores, it's not working, roll it back, point your thumb, say, I thought that was a good idea, but we're going to go back. We're going to go back to work. The other thing is the skeptical, sage executive has to be in the room, right? So, met with one Monday, senior leader at one of our clients, and deep down inside he or she wants the tech. They know the associates love it, right? The experience is great, but at the same time, they don't want to hear about AI and robotics. Their kind of feeling of tech is if you don't hear about it and if you don't talk about it, it's working, right? The store's working, the store's flourishing, the associates are happy, the customers are happy. You're not going to talk about the software or the scanner they have or whatever it might be. It's just working. If you're talking about it a lot, something's probably wrong, right? So I like the skeptical executive that says, I know this is going to be good. I like the use case. It looks great, but make it simple for me. I don't want 40 apps. I want 3, right? And they're really pushing the tech companies it's great. You did something cool. It's a shiny object. Now make it really work and be invisible in the store so that the consumers can consume and the associates can, help the consumers.
Great stuff. We have there's one last quick question in the chat I think we want to get to before we tie it up.
Yes, sir.
It's, does the digital twin allow us to simulate changes before we can make them? Can we test a new floor layout to see if it improves pick packs, et cetera, et cetera?
Absolutely. So that's the whole idea. There's the real-time aspect of it, which we talked about, but probably the biggest benefit would be testing and trying. And in the robotics world, the more we use the software, the more data we have to simulate what would happen if we change something, right? And it's the same here. So the more volume of data we get, video, shopper tracking, inventory, POS data, the more we can model that, and the algorithms can pick up and say, I know what happens when they change something like this, and they can propose this is the likely outcome. So that is going to be a huge game changer when retailers start to use that, or CPG companies start to use that and say, I have a model of the store. I'm going to run this. I want to change this display. I want to change the layout, whatever it might be. And this is what the simulation shows. So let's give it a go. And then you test the simulation results against the reality. in, say, a 10-store trial, A/B trial, or whatever you do. And now you have enhancements to your simulation model. And it just keeps going after that. It just keeps getting better. So yes is the short answer.
Great question and a wonderful way to end. And certainly we'll make sure, there were so many questions in the chat. We'll make sure we get these out to Troy afterwards for follow-ups. And again, we really appreciate the just unbelievable engagement in this call. Speaks to it being a hot button issue. A couple quick words as we close. Troy Siwek leads gStore, GreyOrange's in-store retail platform. It brings more than 2 decades of experience at the intersection of retail, AI, and supply chain innovation. His career spans leadership across retail tech, digital commerce, automation, and he's earned the trust of Fortune 500 brands to modernize operations and unlock real-time visibility across store and fulfillment ecosystems. At GreyOrange, he's been responsible for driving gStore's global growth and product strategy, with a focus on transforming brick and mortar through advanced RFID, AI, and robotics. And under his leadership, gStore has become the go-to solution for top retailers seeking to turn stores into intelligent, agile, high-performance nodes within their broader supply chain. To learn more, visit greyorange.com and certainly do connect with Troy on LinkedIn. You've got the information there up on the slide as well. And one last thing, a quick reminder that we're 3 weeks out from the CMA conference at Caesars Palace in Las Vegas. If you booked yet, here's our promise. You'll enjoy Elevate in February. You're going to have a great time, but you're really going to appreciate it in March when you're solving tough problems with plug-and-play solutions from our workshop. It's in the cold of March where that to-do list is really long and you've got all these things you've learned. That's where the value of a conference like ours pays off. So certainly do join us. Check out the link in the chat for some more information, and do give the flight prices to Las Vegas a gander. They're a lot better than you think. And our room rates and everything else are meant to meet your budget and your ROI. So again, here's hoping we see you in Las Vegas, and here's hoping we see you at future Retail Unfiltered programs like this today. This was awesome. So for James Jackson, Chris Conroy, Inez Abelgahar, and Troy Siwek, thank you for joining us today. This was a great conversation, and we're looking forward to keeping it going in the weeks ahead. Have a wonderful day, stay warm, and take care now. Bye-bye.